2,600 years ago, an ancient prophet described a dream. A statue made of gold, silver, bronze, and iron. 4 metals. 4 empires. Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome. One after another, exactly as predicted. Or was it? Because some scholars think this prophecy was written 400 years after those empires fell. And millions of people believe we're living in its final chapter right now. Babylon, around 600 BCE. King Nebuchadnezzar has a dream that terrifies him. He summons his wise men, magicians, and astrologers. But here's the catch, he won't tell them the dream. They have to describe it and interpret it. Fail, and they die. It's an impossible test. Daniel, a Jewish exile serving in the Babylonian court. That night, he prays. And according to the text, God reveals both the dream and its meaning. The next morning, Daniel walks into the throne room with an answer that will echo through 26 centuries. You saw a great statue, Your Majesty. Its head was pure gold. Its chest and arms, silver. Its belly and thighs, bronze. Its legs, iron. And its feet, partly iron and partly clay. 4 metals. 4 kingdoms. Yours is the head of gold. But then, a stone. Cut without human hands. It strikes the statue's feet. The whole thing, gold, silver, bronze, iron, clay, shatters into dust. The wind carries it away. And the stone? It becomes a mountain that fills the entire earth. God's eternal kingdom, crushing all others. For 2,000 years, believers have read this as prophecy. Head of gold? Babylon. Silver chest? The Persian Empire that conquered Babylon in 539 BCE. Bronze belly? Alexander the Great and the Greeks. Iron legs? Rome. 4 empires, one after another, exactly as the statue predicted. And here's what makes it compelling. The details Daniel includes about Babylon are accurate. The Ishtar Gate, the palace. Even Belshazzar, mocked as fictional for centuries until archaeology proved he was Nabonidus's co-regent. Daniel knew this world. But here's where it gets controversial. Many scholars, maybe most, don't think Daniel wrote this in 600 BCE. They think it was written around 165 BCE. 400 years later. During the Maccabean revolt. Not prophecy. History written backwards. Here's why. Daniel chapters 7 through 12 contain incredibly detailed predictions about events between 200 and 165 BCE. Wars between Greek successor kingdoms. A king who desecrates the temple. Then, after 165 BCE, the predictions get vague and wrong. The book seems written for a specific moment. 167 BCE. Antiochus IV Epiphanes, a Greek ruler, desecrates the Jewish temple in Jerusalem. Slaughters pigs on the altar. Bans Jewish worship. The Maccabees revolt. That's the crisis Daniel addresses. The Dead Sea Scrolls contain fragments of Daniel, dated to around 125 BCE. That proves the book existed by then. But it doesn't prove it was written in 600 BCE. Linguistic analysis, Aramaic dialect, Persian loanwords, even Greek musical instruments, points to a later date. But those who defend early dating point to this. Daniel's Babylonian details are too accurate for a 2nd century author. Court titles. Palace protocols. Belshazzar's role. How would someone in 165 BCE know these things unless the core tradition was genuinely old? Then there are the errors. Daniel says Darius the Mede conquered Babylon. Persian records say it was Cyrus. No, Darius the Mede exists in history. Belshazzar is called Nebuchadnezzar's son, he wasn't. These mistakes suggest limited historical knowledge. Even the 4 kingdoms are debated. Traditionalists say Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome. But critical scholars say Babylon, Media, Persia, and the Greek Seleucids, because the text focuses obsessively on Greek-era events, not Rome. So where does that leave us? With evidence on both sides. Accurate Babylonian details versus linguistic late dating. Historical succession versus suspicious precision about 165 BCE. Early manuscripts versus clear errors. This debate isn't settled. But here's what makes this explosive. Millions of people don't care about the dating debate. Because they believe this prophecy isn't finished. They think we're living in the statue's feet right now. The iron mixed with clay. The final phase before the stone strikes. Remember the stone? Some say it's already happened. Jesus' first coming. The church gradually filling the earth. But others say no, the stone strikes violently. All kingdoms are crushed instantly. That's not the church age. That's the second coming. Still future. Here's the theory. Rome never had a single catastrophic end. It fragmented. The Western Empire fell in 476. The Eastern continued until 1453. But prophecy teachers say Rome is still here, revived in a new form. And they point to Europe. The European Union. Born from the Treaty of Rome in 1957. A confederation of nations in the old Roman territory. Trying to unite but never fully cohering. Iron mixed with clay. Strong military powers alongside smaller nations. Unity without full adherence. Prophecy teachers link the 10 toes to Daniel chapter 7, 10 horns, 10 kings who rule together. Then to Revelation 17, 10 kings who give power to the beast for 1 hour. A final 10-nation confederation. Some thought the EU would stabilize at 10 members. It didn't. This revived Roman coalition, they say, will produce one leader. The Antichrist. Daniel chapter 9 says he'll make a 7-year covenant with Israel, then break it. That's the tribulation. And at the end? The stone strikes. Jesus returns. All human kingdoms end. This ties to Daniel chapter 9. 70 weeks of years, 490 years total. Prophecy teachers say 69 weeks were fulfilled at Jesus' first coming. Then a gap, the church age, 2,000 years and counting. The final week? The 7-year tribulation. Still ahead. How widespread is this view? Pew Research found 63% of American evangelicals believe we're living in the end times. 21% expect Jesus to return in their lifetime. Prophecy conferences pack arenas. This isn't fringe. It's mainstream evangelical belief. Why do people believe this? Current events. Wars in the Middle East. Israel back in its land after 2,000 years. European integration. Technological surveillance. Global instability. To believers, these aren't random. They're birth pains. Signs that the feet of clay are crumbling. Historians point out that every generation has thought they were living in the end times. Medieval scholars mapped Eden. Reformation leaders identified the Pope as Antichrist. The EU has been the revived Rome for 70 years. Prophecy is repeatedly retrofitted to current events. So we're left with 3 questions. 1. When was Daniel written, 600 BCE or 165 BCE? 2. Did the statue prophecy end with Rome, or does it extend to our present? 3. If it extends to now, what happens next? Here's what mainstream scholarship says. Daniel was likely written in 165 BCE, during the Maccabean crisis. It's apocalyptic literature, a genre that reframes current suffering through cosmic symbolism. The 4 kingdoms likely end with the Seleucid Greeks, not Rome. The prophecy was about Antiochus, not the EU. Maybe the real power of Daniel isn't in solving when it was written. It's in what apocalyptic literature does. It takes overwhelming present chaos and gives it cosmic meaning. Empires rise and fall. But God's kingdom endures. That message resonated in 165 BCE. And it resonates now. Does the dating matter? It depends on your framework. If you believe in supernatural prophecy, early dating is essential. If you value literature as human response to crisis, late dating makes sense. Both frameworks are internally consistent. They just start from different premises. The stone cut without hands. For some, it's Jesus' kingdom already growing. For others, it's a future cataclysm still ahead. For historians, it's a literary symbol of divine justice. But everyone agrees on one thing. Empires are temporary. Babylon fell. Persia fell. Greece and Rome fell. The stone remains. Here's what we know for certain. Daniel chapter 2 describes 4 successive kingdoms with remarkable accuracy. The book contains both accurate Babylonian details and historical errors. Linguistic evidence suggests late dating, but the tradition is clearly rooted in earlier material. The debate continues. You can read this as prophecy, divine revelation predicting centuries of history, now approaching its climax. Or as apocalyptic literature, a community under persecution finding hope by placing their suffering in a cosmic narrative. Both readings have shaped history. Why does a 2,600-year-old, or 2,000-year-old, dream still matter? Because it asks the question every generation faces. Is history meaningless chaos, or does it have direction? Are empires the final word, or is there something beyond them? Daniel's statue forces that question. So, prophecy or history written backwards? Already fulfilled or still ahead? The feet of clay, ancient Seleucid dynasty or modern European Union? The stone, Jesus' first coming or his return? You decide. But if the prophecy is still unfolding, we might want to pay attention to what happens next. This is Underlight Histories, where the overlooked is illuminated. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you next time.